Hello, my friends, and welcome to Not Famous. It's always good to talk to you. Today's story is a heartbreaking one. It's the story of Genie Wiley, a young woman who was born in 1957. She was the last of four children born to her parents. She was born with two of her siblings having had already passed away. Her father, Clark, was actually born with a more feminine name. He had some issues growing up. When he became an adult, he changed that name. He was known to hate children, to hate kids. When his first child was born, the crying drove him insane and crazy, so he put the child into the garage, even during the winter months. At the age of 10 weeks old, his first child came down with pneumonia and soon after passed away. A similar situation occurred with the second child. They had a son that was born a little bit later on in time, and that son would go on to have many issues in life as well, but did survive. 5 years after the son was born, Genie was born, the last child that they would have. Genie Wiley was born in 1957. She was born very light, not weighing a whole lot. Outside of that, perfectly healthy. However, her father thought that she had some kind of issues mentally, physically, and immediately began to treat her differently. Now, Genie's mother was in a bad accident as a child and had also suffered some issues such as neurological and vision issues. She was nearly blind. She didn't have as much of a role in raising the children, and she was also heavily abused by Clark, the husband, Genie's father. At the age of 20 months, just as a baby, Genie was locked into the second bedroom of the home where she would spend the next 13 years of her life for the most part. The family would actually sleep out in the living room and was not allowed to go in and talk to Genie. He had no toys or anything to interact with in this room. She was often strapped into a chair that had a toilet below it, and she would have her arms and her legs bound so that she couldn't move around. She didn't get to hear anybody talking. The family wasn't allowed to speak around her. The father didn't speak around her. Now, if she started to cry, whimper, or make noises as she was growing up, her father would go in there and beat her senseless. And this is what happened from the time that she was just a baby, a toddler, a young child, to her teenage early years. At the age of 13, her mother and her father had got into this horrible fight, and the mother took Genie and left. A few weeks later, the mom was trying to go in and get some kind of social security benefits set up for her. She had Genie with her. The mother, who's almost blind, accidentally walked into the social services office instead of the office next door, and they immediately knew that something was wrong with Genie. In fact, it came out that despite the fact she was 13 years old, her body was physically the size of a 6-year-old. Her mind, her brain maturity was that of a 1-year-old. She was rescued in October of 1970, immediately taken into the care of the state. Her parents would face trial for the child neglect, the abuse that she had been through. Now, the day before her father was supposed to go on trial, he shot himself in the head and ended his life. The charges against Genie's mother would be dropped as she pled that she was a victim of abuse herself, which is true, and that she was unable or unaware of many of the things that were happening in her own home due to her blindness and other health conditions. Now, for a while, this case was big in the headlines. It was national news. There was a lot of scientific studies done, a lot of psychotherapy done to try to figure out what had happened. She was known as the feral child. She could not speak any kind of language. She did not act normal. She did not act like any of us at all. Heartbreaking, my friends. It really is truly heartbreaking. She could barely do anything on her own. Over time, she would learn a few words and a few things. However, she was quickly put into the foster care system. In these systems, she endured more abuse. At some point, her mother did achieve custody of her, and she went back to stay with her for a short time. However, due to the mother's health conditions, she was not able to stay with her very long. She went back into the system. Now, there's a whole book that could be written about Genie's life and what happened from all these different points and what has happened since. However, to this day, she is still somewhere in the state of California being held on the state's help. There's a movie, a documentation about her life, although some details were changed for privacy of the family, made in 2001, called Mockingbird Don't Sing. You can check that out if you haven't had a chance. It's very heartbreaking, my friends. Friends, we'll be covering more cases like this, and you don't want to miss a thing. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It's always good to talk to you, my friends. I hope you're having an amazing day, whether it's cold or whether it's hot, wherever you're at. I'll talk to you again, and as always, adios, amigos.